My name is Marius Repšys. I'm an actor. Uh, I studied in the Lithuanian Music and Theatre Academy. Prior to that, I studied at the Vilnius Educological University, physical training profession. So I've been in sports quite actively since my childhood, but later on I decided to turn to arts. And in one of my songs, I came to the art field like a beginner, but I will leave the field of art as an expert. And you see a patient if in front of you, you have your mental health issues, a lifelong condition. So thank you that you invited me to share my story. I'm happy to be standing here talking to professionals, to experts of this field, and I am really proud to talk to you today. I know that the majority you are psychiatrists, and so don't think bad if I mispronounce something or misjudge something. It's my chance to talk about stigma, which is still valid. I consider myself to be a pioneer because I was one of the first one in Lithuania to talk about mental health and mental disorders, and I do feel the urge and the need to talk about it. So let's start. I was born in Vilnius. My parents were of different nationalities. I will tell my story to you, and this story will be from the patient's perspective. As my doctor says, I cannot be within your head. I don't understand what is happening within your head. So I will tell you how the world is seen from the patient's view. So my parents are from different cultures, from different nationalities. My mother is a Tatar. My late father is a Jew. I was born in Vilnius, but I lived for some time in Kiev. And when the Ukraine experienced the Chernobyl problem, probably I would have stayed in Kiev, in Ukraine. I would be fighting for the freedom of Ukraine. It happened that I landed in Vilnius and my parents divorced. My father found another lady, and we were not wealthy. My mother and I, we had an empty apartment and a mattress on the floor. We lived even in anti-sanitary conditions. But when my new father, my stepfather Vladas, came to our family at the beginning, he was a cool guy. He loved me and he still loves me. But his childhood was very difficult and he became really abusive gradually. And it really reflected in my development, in development of my character and perception of myself. But in the family, then we had much better material condition. We had TV, we had furniture. My mother got pregnant, and my stepfather worked all day long, and I was on the streets. I spent time on the streets, and I always wanted to be a leading guy. I wanted to show off, to be better, to be perfect to myself, and to be cool, to look strong and almighty. And I told to my friends, guys, are you hungry? Yes, we are very hungry. Let's go, I will feed you. And we went to a shop. We went down the hill and entered that shop alone. And I told the guys outside, entered the shop, and do we have Ukrainians here, by the way, in the hall? Do we have Ukrainians? Slava Ukraini, Geroyam Slava. I'm very happy that they are here. We used to have such rolls for 3 kopecks. And I decided to use those rolls for feeding my friends. I stole those rolls, and when I was leaving, a guy grabbed me by hand and started shouting, "A thief, a shoplifter!" And I was 7 at that time. I was so scared. Then the sales girls came to me. They grabbed me and dragged me to some office. and they restrained me there in this in some warehouse. I was so ashamed. I was so scared. I was I was afraid of something. I was not aware of what. And of course, I was afraid of my stepfather. I was locked in the warehouse, and the first idea got into my head, no, I'm perfect. How come? I'm almighty. How could it have happened with me like this? And this perfection of mine played against me. And me being 7, I got this idea that I should attempt suicide. So I looked for a knife in the warehouse but could not find that knife. I looked for some ropes, for some bed sheets in order to hang myself, but I could not find anything. It was empty. And my stepfather came to fetch me. He told nothing, but I peed my pants, and friends were not waiting for me outside. And it was the first attempt of suicide. I don't know where it came from, but I had such an episode. So probably it was the first seed which started germinating from that time. Afterwards, I went to school. I was in the 2nd grade. I fell in love with a girl, Diana. I was deeply in love, but unfortunately, she did not respond. I gave her a ring, and she threw this ring to my face and said, "You idiot." Of course, when you are a boy, you don't show emotions that something is, that you feel pain, that you are hurt. But when I came home, my stepfather asked for my grade book, and and he saw a lot of low marks, and he threw that notebook at the wall. He broke my music recorder, and I closed myself within a wardrobe, and I wanted to kill myself within that wardrobe, but it was too painful. I was too scared, and I could not succeed. Uh, at school, I was really curious, but I always wanted to be the best, the strongest. I started making sports, and I happened to be within a cult. It's Kung Fu sect, and they used to say that if you are weak, you cannot be weak. At that time, people trusted everything they heard, and I understood that those who do not act, those are the weak ones. If you are a warrior, you have to be ready to defend yourself, to defend your family, your countryside. And I decided to sleep little, because they say those who are strong warriors, they should not sleep. So I slept only 2 3 hours, and of course, due to that, my grades went down. But in addition, I was also a trainer. I was a Kung Fu coach for Eastern sports, Kung Fu, and I practiced sports myself a lot. And then I experienced the first symptoms of my illness, of my disorder, but nobody noticed that. They said, "Wow, Marius, you are so strong. Your will is so strong." Yes, I said, "Yes, I am even stronger. I can give up eating. I gave up eating meat." Yeah, and they say, "Wow, you don't sleep much. You don't eat something. You're so strong." And actually, at school, people tried to avoid me. And at that time, my illness really progressed. It started developing, but nobody in my close vicinity could notice that. And one of the reasons why I talk openly about my mental health, in order to educate people so they could start seeing and noticing people in their close family who really have some mental health issues. So I really practiced sports to the extreme. I wanted to be first. I wanted to gain attention, which I lacked probably from my parents. I wanted to be an actor like Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, Jean-Claude Van Damme. They were my gurus. And I decided that I would really become an actor, but theater was something not for me. I wanted to be a cinema actor. I loved to copy some characters. And when I was 5, I thought I'm B. Maya. I would have some kind of peek into my ass, and I thought I'm a bee and I can sting. I wanted to have a propeller to be another character like Winnie the Pooh. I used to copy Jackie Chan, Van Damme. So I would go out on the streets. I would have fights, then come back. If I lose, I watch the movies again, see how can I fight better. So that was my childhood. I am from that generation. And as I said, my grades were very low, but exams were approaching, and I thought, how can I enter the art college? I'm a sporty guy. That's why I was enrolled with this physical education profession in the educational university. But I was invited to the opera, and at that opera, I perceived this atmosphere of a theater. As I told you, I slept little, I had insomnia, and I felt a real warrior. And I had this condition for 10 years or so. I slept a few hours or did not sleep at all or had a very sensitive sleep. After this Flying Dutchman opera, I understood that I love theater. And at first I was in the amateur theater, and then I joined the Theater and Music Academy, and it was a very hard time. Lectures were very difficult as of 7 o'clock in the morning until late in the evening, 11 in the evening, every day, no no days off. And in addition, I started hearing voices, and they started, but I did not pay attention to those voices. Then another mania came to me. I decided that I have to be Rachmaninoff. I did not know what is Rachmaninoff or Tchaikovsky. I started playing the piano. I learned it by myself, and I used to dedicate 6 hours per day. In addition, that lecture started at 7, but as I don't sleep much, why not to use that time for playing the piano? I did not see any problem with that. I used to start up at 5, played until 7. At 7, I was in the lectures. If I had a break, I used to play the piano, would come back at 10, and then from 11 to 1, I again played the piano. And I felt that I'm superhero, a superman. In addition to being a sporty guy, I can play the piano. How cool is that? So I played the quite complex pieces, learned to play them, and my peers, my teachers, they supported me. Wow, Marius, you have so strong will. You can play the piano. I could not read the note sheets well. And even then, my people surrounding me could not see that something is wrong with me. And at that time, my suicidal thoughts were very, very overwhelming. After the academy, I had no money. I thought I would give up theater. I got a job with IT. I was not a very good staff member. It was not my field of expertise, but I got some money. At that time, my first child was born, and every month I thought they will fire me. They will fire me. So I took it step by step. And then at one moment, Oscar Korshunov, our famous director, he invited me to casting, and he was a little bit tipsy, not sober very much, and and he gave me certain tasks. and he wanted to see how brave I am, and he saw that I'm really flexible. That's why in this casting I got a role, and I was awarded with the stage golden cross. I got a lot of invitations, a lot of roles, and I really started feeling like a star. I got a lot of projects, and then a lot of money came into my family budget. I could earn a lot of money and slept even less, and the voices got stronger in my head. And even I used to play my roles using those voices in my head. And those voices keep telling me, you are bad, you should hang yourself, you should kill yourself. You know, as professionals, how it is. It's a standard situation. And then I got this steep emotional low. Psychosis started. I cut my veins, and I ended into a psychiatry hospital. And the doctor was perfect for me. Maybe you know that doctor. She is my second grandmother. It's Danguolė. Maybe you know who are Lithuanians. Her surname. It's my doctor Danguolė. And from that turning point, my recovery started. At the beginning, medication was not proper. I left the hospital thinking that I would start a new life, but I did not manage to. I went to Gdansk on our creative trip. The whole theater went to Gdansk, the director, the decorations, the tickets were sold out. And then I started hearing voices. I got a lot of pills and ended in the intensive care department. So I needed to go back to hospital for recovery, and then I was released. I thought I would start another new period, and nobody could see what was happening in my soul, in my head. For everybody, it was like taboo. They did not feel comfortable to talk about that. And finally, it was my third time in the hospital. I stayed there for 1 month, read piles of books during that time. And when I went out, I decided that it's the last time I'm restrained in hospital. I came to a conclusion that I need to recover, that I do need to practice some beliefs, to adhere to medicine, get rid of friends with negative influence. I entered the rehabilitation center as a guest. I met priest Kęstutis there, and I saw how they function there. I started believing in God. I don't know what are your beliefs. Personally, for me, it really helps. I started to take my medicine regularly. At this time, they were properly chosen. I started my recovery, successful recovery. And one more reason why I talk openly about my disorder, because people might start calling me crazy. This is one of my students. He killed himself. He had the same symptoms like me. You do know those symptoms. They are very regularly repeating themselves. One bipolar people have one set of symptoms. Other people have a different set of symptoms. And at the closing of my speech, I could say that my wish is to educate people, to explain how a person feels, so people who are in your close family will understand that there are mental health issues. And likewise, you cannot fix your teeth. Please do not fix your mental health issues. You don't have to look down once into the flow from the bridge. Go to your psychiatrist, adhere to your regime, your medication, and take it seriously. One doctor had said, 5 minutes to your death, it's too late to tell to a person that you smoked during your lifetime. That's why you have lung cancer. It's too late. You have to start earlier with education to avoid treatment at a later stage. So I wish that some kind of mental health courses would be arranged. I don't want to be misunderstood, but if the society is educated, even at school in this subject of biology, there would be some topics about psychiatry in order to enable people to recognize that something is wrong. We talk about different illnesses, but mental disorders, mental health illnesses are left aside. So, this is my message: educate, educate, educate. And my time is up. I took 20 minutes sharply. Thank you for listening to me. And if you want, you can ask questions. You are welcome. I will be happy to answer all your questions.
Klauskite angliškai, aš suprantu.
Yeah.
You can pose your questions in English.
Степаненко, я из Украины. И
I'm from Ukraine. You told us about that part of your life when you were acting in the theater. What about your relations at that time with your mother, with your stepfather? Was there any role that they were playing in your life?
In Lithuania. What was the question? Yeah? Okay. Aš pasakysiu taip.
My relationship with my mother was also very good. And after my first serious suicide attempt, when I drank myself almost to death and started cutting my hands, my mom and my stepfather came to bid goodbye to me because they were going abroad. And they didn't even notice that I was drunk or that my hands were cut. And I have these awards. For acting, I am a good actor, believe you me. And they did not notice me being drunk. And now I talk to my stepfather is hello and how are you doing? And I have to remind you that I have a wife and 2 children, and I'm really thankful to her because she is amazing, and my kids are small and they don't know much about my issues. I will disclose them to my kids later in life, but my family did not know and did not understand a lot of things. I think we could avoid a lot of deaths and a lot of trauma if families knew more about such issues.
я хотела спросить,
You started experiencing your problems when you were at school. And then you mentioned Kung Fu and other martial arts. So what were the benefits and what were the disadvantages at that time in your life? What was helping you? You're asking about sports. Yes, because I think that there are pluses, but there are also minuses.
Kaip sakant, proto ribose viskas yra labai gerai. Bet mano atveju tai buvo ne proto ribose. Mano atveju tai buvo fanatizmas. O fanatizmas yra visą laiką blogai ir visą laiką blogai yra neturėti ribų. Tai sportas yra viskas.
Sports is good if it's without boundaries and limits, but I became fanatical, and fanaticism is very bad because it's about losing your limits. I would like to ask, I have lived experience and also work in the field of arts more like a curator, but also spend a lot of time with artists. And I wanted to ask, how do you feel being an artist and having a mental health issue? Because from my own perspective, I always thought maybe it's easier because it's easier recognized among artists. But listening to you, I had an impression that things that are not good for a person, somehow in the field of arts, that could give something extra. People say that being a bit mad sounds cool, but you probably underlined very well that being an artist, it is easier to talk about it, because if I was a lawyer, I would have kept my mouth shut for fear of losing my job. But my profession is different, and it makes it easier to talk about it. Mental health issues can come into anybody's life, a president or a street cleaner. They don't choose according to the profession, and it does seem easier for an artist. But I don't think that a mad artist is a better artist. No, I think that a clear mind, a sober mind is important. And art, creativity is secondary, because the primary thing is your health. I don't believe in these sayings that art is going to save the world. It would have done that already if it could have done that. I believe that healthy mind is a greater priority than creativity.
Well, we talked about a lot about well-being, and you are performance, and also you were playing. And I wanted to know today what is the most important things that you do for yourself for your well-being.
Ačiū už klausimą.
Thank you very much for the question. I gave up social networks, and I gave them up because I choose what to watch, I choose what to read, I pray, I work a lot. But my attitude itself shifted, and my priorities were rearranged. Creativity is not something of utmost importance. It's only work for me, because I believe and I think that you are needed in the theater as much as you are needed, but you are always most needed in your family. And without health, you are not as able to help out your family. If you die, they'll replace you in the theater, but it's not going to be replaceable in your family. And I believe that impacted on my thinking. My question is, what would you say to your parents, or to parents in general, who say to their children, you don't know these problems, and who say that psychologists are only a fashionable new thing? What would you tell them? I would tell them that maybe you would like to spend a day in a psychiatric ward. But that's the shift in the mindset of generations. During the Soviet time, psychiatric wards were horrible. Epidolomimazine, other insulin shock, other medications. Now psychiatry has made a big step forward. Now we don't have to be afraid of treatment. And to run mad on the streets, yeah, we do that. Quite a lot of us do that. But if that interferes with your life, if that ruins your family, that's not your way out. And I would say to those parents, come to a conference about rethinking mental health care and learn about things.
Anonymous 4 minutes ago.
From the online participants. So
How early do you think we should start to educating our children? Okay, good question. I think aš manau, kad
I believe that we should start educating children since their teenage years, when their personalities become more emerging, more shaped. Maybe that's the question for teachers and for psychiatrists, for educators. When I was in one of my ups, I approached one parliament member in Lithuania and offered an idea which was discarded, unfortunately. And I didn't achieve much with it. But I believe that the future is bright.
workout.
yes. Tai ačiū labai.
Thank you very much for your presentation. I'm also diagnosed schizophrenia patient, and I had a similar experience, but vice versa. You had bipolar with emotions. I had issues with my thoughts and delirium. My technical question, did you go through a lot of medications and diagnosis? Yes, my diagnosis was changed. Maybe should I say what medications I'm using? You don't have to. No, I got them from the second or third attempt, and it was perfect. I was lucky like that. And I guess I was lucky to be able to change something in my own head. Yes, I believe you are lucky. And maybe one more comment. Maybe first visit shouldn't be to a psychiatrist, but maybe to a psychologist. No, maybe I wouldn't agree with that. I did have cases when psychologists failed to recognize that I needed serious help. There was a case when I took my friend to a private psychiatric center, and they said, you need olanzapine, and that's it. And on the other day, he was admitted for a month to another psychiatric center. So what I'd like to wish you all is to be very attentive as specialists and to observe your patients carefully.
Last question.
Okay.
Marius, Natalia, Ukraine.
Marius, I'm Natalia from Ukraine. When you understood that you were in need of psychiatric assistance, and then you got acquainted with what life in a psychiatric clinic is like, and then you came to understand that you would manage it. When was that? How was that?
Pasakyti per prievartą į ligoninę, bet aš iškart sutikau, nes man buvo labai baisu ir labai nemalonu.
For the first time, I was admitted involuntarily, and it was very unpleasant to hear all these voices. I was really scared of the hospital. I thought that maybe they were trying to murder me in this prison-like facility. But when I came there, I saw that it was nothing like I imagined. And when I was admitted for the last time, I had another patient next to me who was snoring, and he stank. And even though I had a lot of medication, he was like snoring terribly. And when I left, I said that I don't want to be readmitted. My time is too precious. And although I read a lot of books and wrote a lot of texts, it was enough to be admitted. And I started looking for this end of the rope to pull myself out of the situation. And Kęstutis Dvarackas, the father, Kęstutis Dvarackas, a priest, on his example, I saw other patients who were recovering, and that became my moment when I realized that I can also achieve that for myself.
It's a big pleasure to be here. Thank you. Слава Україні!